Welcome to Season 2 of Difference Talks, brought to you by the LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training Team. Our guests are inspiring people who share their stories of brand differentiation. Based on our book, The Power of Differentiation, our goal is to inspire 1 million people with the message that winning hearts and minds are the first step in growing market share. Now, on with the show.
Hello, everybody. I'm Barry LeBeau. Welcome to Difference Talks podcast. I am the CEO and founder of LeBeau Marketing, Communications, and Training, and I am the author of The Power of Differentiation. I have a wonderful guest, a great friend today, an industry leader, and I'm going to introduce him in a moment, but I want to just share a little bit about him. This person today, John Roussel, is a leader, and he's a person who has rallied teams. He's a person who has dealt with tough situations. He's a person who has boundless energy. And you could talk to anybody that's worked with him, anybody that's a friend of his, and you're going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He's energy. He's all about getting people to achieve something, in many cases, that is historic for their brands. So I'm going to turn it over to you, John. Share a little bit about yourself, some of the great companies you've worked with, by the way, multi-billion-dollar companies that you've worked with, and tell us how you got here.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. It's great to be here. Thanks for letting me be a part of this. How did I get here? That's a good question. I'm in the food service business, and I probably, if you would have asked me 30 years ago, I wouldn't have said, I want to grow up and sell green beans for a living. So, that wasn't the initial goal, but that is what I do. And, I got into food service because I'm kind of a culinary guy. I love to cook. Of course, I love to go to great restaurants, and I love all that. There's nothing like going to your customer, visiting them at a great restaurant, becoming friends with them, and my career has been lately, the last probably 20 years, has been running companies. I've run companies like Shamrock Foods, like Reinhardt Food Service, and Martin Brower Food Service, and so all a little bit different, some in different parts of the country, but really all about taking care of the restaurant customer.
Challenges in the area of service have you faced that come to mind? Because you're dealing with, you mentioned restaurants, but it could be schools, it could be grocery stores. What are the challenges?
Labor obviously is a huge challenge for our industry. And so, our frontline workers are our drivers. Our drivers take over 30,000 pounds of food every day from our warehouses and deliver them throughout the communities in which we work. And that's hard work. You see them out there offloading on the backs of trucks with two-wheelers and going in the backs of restaurants, which these tight spaces. And so the biggest challenge, I think, in the food service industry is probably number one is drivers. And the other thing is not only do they have to be a professional CDL licensed driver that can handle an 18-wheeler, but in addition, they are your ambassador. They see our customer every day, or at least 2 or 3 times a week. I don't see all 20,000 customers every week, but they do. And so our drivers are so important, not only that they get there on time and they deliver, but when they deliver, they're the face of our company. We spend a lot of time making sure that we hire, recruit, and retain some of those best people.
All right. So what's interesting is we all have our different businesses, but the face of your company quite often is that driver. So if I'm on the road, I see somebody driving one of your trucks, it doesn't occur to me that he or she is your brand. But in essence, you're saying that person is your brand. And one thing that customers really do feel is that your brand experience is the same thing as your brand. So if that truck driver is nasty or unappealing or difficult, what effect does it have on the brand that you represent, John?
Yeah, that's so right, Barry. That is our brand, those people. And we spend so much time on training within our culture of that service mentality and saying, look, your restaurants have challenges. They may not always be in a good mood. They may be having tough times. You can make their day even better. You can make that experience even better. And we will be valuable as a result. And so we try to help our drivers understand that if they create an awesome experience at the restaurant, it will be great for them. They will create relationships that will be long lasting. They will enjoy their job. One of the things you find is we don't have too many skinny drivers. They get fed, they make sure that they have a soda or a coffee. The people, when they develop these relationships with these restaurants, it's a friendship, and they develop that to where they look forward to seeing them and the restaurant looks forward to seeing our driver. That's the ideal situation. It's not a transaction. It is that relationship coming to life during that delivery. And there's work involved, but they see each other face to face. They know each other. They know their names. And, to me, that's what makes that delivery special. And that's what makes that service experience really special.
Yeah, you're providing significance to that driver, saying, you know what, you're not just somebody at a steering wheel that's pumping on the brakes, that's walking out and lowering a lift. You're actually our brand. You're making a difference. Yes, you might not be in a good mood today, but you can help people, and you represent what we're all about. So thank you. And that's what you're doing.
A driver who just retired after 40 years, and he had his region was a couple towns in northern Arizona, and he was kind of on his own because we'd get the truck up to him and he'd make his deliveries every day. And he retired, and we got a video from one of our customers up there, and the town had a parade for him where he was escorted by the police through the town with our truck. He was pulling the horn, and people were all the restaurant customers and people that had known him for all these years, including some of the restaurant patrons, were waving, were honking their horn. And it was just so awesome. And that driver was like, this is why I did what I did, and I love my job. And so we would love to create that experience for all of our drivers and for all of our customers.
And we who run businesses, that's how our team should feel. They should feel like there's a parade going down the hallway. Look what I did. Look at this. Isn't this amazing?
Yeah.
Great. That's a great concept. And that is so important to all of us to hear, because to me, that driver could be an unsung hero. And we have to make sure we're singing that song. Now, question for you next. We move into what we call the power of differentiation discussion. Can you share an experience where you had to tackle a challenge that could have been overwhelming, a challenge that could have defeated you and or your people and or the company, and you not only succeeded, but you did it by winning the hearts and minds of your team, rallying your people?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, Barry, everyone has a COVID story, and when they went into a tough time because somehow that pandemic impacted their lives and their company and their workers. And we were probably on the extreme end of it. And I can't speak for other industries, but in food service, overnight, we went from delivering thousands of trucks a day to a standstill because every restaurant closed, every school was closed, every business was closed. They were trying to figure out remote, but it was way early, if you recall. And so we had about, I think, over $200 million of groceries in our warehouses, produce and meat and seafood and fresh all products, and our sales stopped and went to nothing. And we had to figure out, what are we going to do? We have no sales. We went from $50 million a day to nothing, and we had to figure it out. And so we got together with the team and we looked at what can we do. Well, the big shift at the time went immediately, if you remember, to grocery. Everyone, they pounded the grocery stores. They cleaned them out, frankly, of water and toilet paper, and you couldn't get cleaning supplies and all of that. Well, that they were making a run on grocery. Well, we were in food service servicing restaurants and schools and universities and healthcare, and those were shutting down or stopping pretty dramatically. And so we decided we were going to pivot to grocery, and we were going to take care of the grocery stores because we knew they were going to get bombarded with people that weren't going to restaurants anymore, but they needed groceries for home. And so we contacted all of the major grocers, all of the Krogers and the Safeways and Walmarts and Targets and all of them, and said, we know you're getting hammered for groceries. What can we do with our products? They're not perfect for retail. What can we do? We immediately turned that on. And then we were also concerned we don't want to lose our drivers because now they didn't have work and we were going to have face layoffs. And we said, well, how are we going to not lay off these drivers? They're our ambassadors. They're the best people we have. We talked to the grocery chains and they said, we could really use some temporary drivers. Can you loan us your drivers so they could make deliveries to our grocery stores? And we said, absolutely. And we took probably 200 or 300 drivers and dispatched them out to the grocers throughout the West and had them deliver for them for a while our business was starting to slowly come back. And then the government was trying through USDA to provide meals to people that were less fortunate and needed food. And so they put out a USDA farmer to family food box. And we said, let's figure out how to, we had never made a food box for USDA ever. And we said, let's try to do that. We ended up being the largest provider of farmer to family food box in the nation because we pivoted and we rallied our team and we said, we care about our people, our associates. We want to keep them employed. The employees that I've seen over the years since then have come up to me when I've seen them at banquets or at other events, and they've said, my family will not forget what this company did for me, because there were a lot of drivers in warehouse and other people that got laid off and didn't have work for 6, 8, 12 months. And you guys pulled it off, and we feel like that was a big win.
You're speaking volumes about the culture, and you're a humble person, the culture that you help create because you showed the importance of people and you rallied your team to help preserve that culture. The easiest thing in the world is say, hey, all bets are off. We're done. We're going to go down into the bunker. We'll wait till everything's safe. We'll come back up. And, sometimes maybe that's the right way to go. With our company, we followed a similar path as you. We did not go in the bunker. We just decided to sit out the bad time and say, we're moving ahead. We're going to grow. And what you did was great. We'll explore a little bit more of this after our break. We're right now talking with John Roussel, who is absolutely an inspiring leader in the food service industry. We'll be right back.
Difference Talks is a LaBeouf production. Our focus is differentiation, and we believe it's more important than ever to differentiate your brand and experience. Contact us at labeouf.com for a conversation. We'd love to connect with you.
We are back on Difference Talks. We are now going to turn our attention to a few things. We call it the greatest hits segment. We have John Roussel here. John, you've talked about rallying companies and facing things like the pandemic, giving significance to truck drivers who are your brand. Let's talk about you for a moment. What is your personal differentiation?
For me, I feel like my ability to relate with others, to develop a rapport with people, to develop a relationship with people, to have them feel that I am genuine, is part of who I am. And I think if you ask people, what do you think about John, and how do you feel about him, and people would say, he is true, He is genuine. He's a person who I really enjoy being around. I enjoy doing things with. I love to have fun. If you had in the dictionary work hard, play hard, that's me. Because I feel like we all work hard. Everyone has a job and it's always tough and there's always challenges. But to me, the second half is the play hard because you work with these people and you see them more than you see your family, whether it's your customers or your people that you work with. And so I always want to take time out, celebrate with my team, thank my team, have fun with my team. I mean, this is like, I think it's great. And sometimes, new employees will come in and they'll go, almost like feeling guilty, like, should we be doing this? Should we be going out and, and playing golf or going and do something? And I'm like, yeah, we should, because you work really hard and I will get 10 times back what we do here this afternoon or this time or this dinner. And so for me, I think that's an important part of the chemistry of people feeling good. And it's also a way to develop those relationships. I think the play hard part, people think it's play. I think when I play and have fun with my customers, they love it. And the next time I call them, they're like, how are you doing? What's going on? I mean, I have customers, they know I like to fish. They send me pictures of the fish they caught. They're golfing. They tell me I'm at this golf course. We've developed this rapport. We wouldn't have that. If it was business, of course they would respect me and I'd respect them. We go to a different level. And I think, that relational piece is what makes me maybe different than others, but it's what I feel like that's the genuine me.
A couple of things I think are really interesting, and you use the word celebrate. And in my book, I talk about, you determine what makes you unique and you're able to communicate it. But the very first thing you do before you tell the world about your brand or your new product is you celebrate it. You don't just give information you celebrate it with the most important people, and that is your employees, your team. Yep. All right. And your theme in our podcast several times has been the celebration of what you do, all the way to the truck driver going through a small town in Arizona getting a ticker tape parade, which is crazy. But what you're talking about there too is on a day-to-day basis, celebrating, enjoying what we're doing. One more thing I'd add to you, because I've gotten to know you now for about a decade, is, and I want you to delve into this a little bit because it can be overlooked. And you have not said this. You've demonstrated it in your behavior, but you have not bluntly said this. And that is, you are, in all these organizations, you have been the number one or the number two person over hundreds, if not over 1,000 or more people. The image of that for many of us is, okay, he's sitting in this ivory tower. He's all alone in the office and he's telling people, go do this, go do that, go take care of that. And he sits there. I have seen in over the decade I've known you, you are roll up your sleeves, hands on, you're doing it. You're out there mingling, talking, working. You're probably loading trucks during the COVID period. You're doing whatever it takes. Speak to that approach, because there are peers of yours, very successful peers, who are not differentiated in that way.
Yeah, and I think everybody's different. For me, it is all about how do I connect with my customers and how do I connect with my people. When I started this latest assignment that I had running this company, the first thing I did was I went to the owner, and the owner's a great guy, and he has had this company, and it's a 100-year-old company, and it's done phenomenally well. And I said, hey, look, I want to spend the next 3 months just going out in the field, meeting customers, riding along with our salespeople, and just seeing what we do and what makes this company great. Because it was a great company when I got there, and I wanted to say, how do I take that and make it even better? And so the first thing I said was, I want to get out there and spend time. And I did that for 3 months. And because you can immediately go into, You can have a calendar that has more Zoom calls than you know what to do with within the second day. And that's what gets you trapped in an office, and you never get out, and you never get that voice of the customer. What's important to the customer? And why are you differentiating yourself or not differentiating yourself? And I found there were places that we were doing a good job, but I also felt like there was opportunities that came out of that discovery process. And so those 3 months were invaluable to me, and I used that, and I continue to connect and get out there in the field, because I don't know how you can do it through 5 layers down and still think that you understand what's important to them.
Mm. Many of our listeners are involved with companies that are old, but old is a, kind of a subjective term. Is old 10 years old, 40? You worked with, in the past, among the many great companies you've worked with, a company over 1 century old. How can you keep a century-old company relevant?
The last company that I was with was Shamrock Foods, and they're a 100-year-old company, and started from Irish immigrants, and just an amazing company. Started as a dairy farm down in Tucson, and today, a multi-billion-dollar company that's had huge success and is 100 years old. And I think the secret sauce for them, and what I think has kept them going, is they really focused on culture and their people. And it started with that. And it's a part of the motto that they had was, we treat our associates like family and our customers and suppliers as friends. That is the beginning of every sentence whenever we get together with any of our people or our customers or our suppliers, is that. And you can say that, but the other part of it is actually living up to that, right? And they walk the talk. And so it was an amazing family company, 4th generation, which is incredible in itself.
Unbelievable.
But they never lost sight of, we treat our associates like family. And as you get bigger, that becomes tougher. And so I give them a lot of credit for doing that, sticking with that. And then my job was, how do I bring that to life every day? How do I take those 5,000 employees, and how do I continue that mission that this wonderful family company has? How do I do that? And that was my job, was keeping that relevant and alive every day.
What is your best day? Describe that. You just talked about what you did every day. So you go home one day after working and you feel energized, you feel fired up, excited, proud. Please describe what your best day is.
An incredible day for me is when I get a chance to get out of the office and I go spend time with a customer, and whether it's just going and seeing them, visiting with them, or it's having meetings with them, or having a meal with them, whatever it is, for me, getting that opportunity to meet with them and seeing that I have had an opportunity to help them be successful. So whether it was ideas I brought and I see that come to life in their menu, or whether it is that I've helped them with products and they have that on their menu and it's this wonderful menu item that everyone loves. And so when I go out and I see that firsthand, and then have that customer tell me, you're truly a partner of mine and you have helped me be successful, because I'll compliment them and I'll say, you have an amazing restaurant. You have huge success. Look at the line out the door. And they said, John, we have an amazing success. And so when I go home, I feel great about that, because I really do feel like I was a part of why that customer, why that restaurant is doing so well. I take pride in it. I drive by it. I brag about it to friends. I tell them, you got to go to that restaurant. They're awesome. The people are great. I feel like I'm a part owner in that place. And so to me, that's a great day. I go home feeling like, man, I did something great in a business that I love. I made people happy and I made myself happy.
We talk about employees need significance and meaning. We need to provide that as leaders. John, you just described this. We as leaders, we need to feel that. And what you just described, that's the significance you feel. You know, you're connecting, you're bonding, and you're bringing ideas that are being adopted by the client. You're actually helping them and you're making a difference. And that's the significance you need in what you do. So I think it's wonderful. Are there any last thoughts or suggestions you have for our audience? I'd love to hear them if so.
Look, I think, I really enjoyed your book, and I think there's so many nuggets of really good wisdom. And I think it's really important to kind of go through that and put that your book up against kind of a mirror of what you do and to test it. And, one of the things I thought was really impactful, what you talked about, don't commoditize yourself and don't let you, it is such a risk in today's business climate as things get tough and people talk about inflation and it is an easy go-to. And so quickly companies can find they completely lose their way. They lose sales, they lose customers, their employees don't feel the reward they used to. They don't feel it's special. They don't have a differentiator anymore. And they're just one of everybody else. And it is so hard to not succumb to that. And as a leader, it's so easy to do because you're like, hey, I got to cut costs. I got to get my product cost down. I got to charge less. I got to do this. This other guy did this. And so I got to go do it. And by the way, in my world with all of my salespeople, I have 500 salespeople all giving me suggestions. I don't have a suggestion box, but they seem to have located one in my email. And so if you listen too much to that, you're going to hear the guys, I need, this, I need green beans cheaper, and I need that. And you can easily go down that road. And I think you point out in your book that, that is absolutely the wrong thing to do, because you need to be different. You need to show something that no one else can do. And that's what we tried to do to our restaurant customers, is differentiate, provide an amazing service, don't compromise it, have the best products, and give them great value. We want to give them value. We bring value every day. And so I think it was something that really stood out for me in your book, that it's easy to succumb to that. And I think it's something that you coach in the book not to do. And I think it's brilliant, and I think it was great. I smiled when I read it, because I know there isn't a CEO out there, Barry, that doesn't face that challenge.
Yeah, and we call it the commodity monster, because if you don't watch out, it will eat you alive.
Right.
And it's very easy to give into it. Today, I want to thank you so much, John. We just got to hear from a leader, and you can feel the passion and the care that he has. You can feel the excitement he has to help clients, but also even more, help his employees, help his associates. So, John, thank you for today. I love it. I love you as a person, John. You're an amazing person. Until next time, remember, leaders differentiate. Thank you for listening to Difference Talks.
Thank you for joining us on Difference Talks. All of us at LeBeau are proud to celebrate great people with inspiring messages. Difference Talks was created, produced, engineered, and performed by the LeBeau team. Even the music is original. Contact us at lebeau.com to learn how to differentiate your brand and give your team a sense of significance and meaning.